In the news tonight, the Prime Minister receives the annual reports of the anti-graft body. Daesh claims responsibility for the truck bomb blast that has killed nearly 50 people in the northeastern Syrian city of Qamishli. And the Pope says the recent attacks show the world is at war and religion is not to be blamed. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. Prime Minister Hani Molki emphasized that states' bodies should work to promote and cement a culture of transparency, shun wrongdoing and step up the fight against corruption through stiffer penalties. Receiving the annual reports of the Anti-Corruption Commission and the Ombudsman Bureau before they were merged into a one body, the Prime Minister said any squandering or violation to public money should be met with a stiff punishment because such an act is tantamount to an assault against every Jordanian. The Prime Minister gave orders to address what he called as administrative loopholes that could invite corruption and wrongdoing. Al-Mulki also instructed the Anti-Corruption Commission to screen all policies and decisions taken and endorsed by the government to make sure they rise the highest transparency and evaluation criteria. In the presence of the Prime Minister, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources signed with Khalid bin al-Walid Group the final contract of implementing roadway lighting and establishing LED lighting units factory. The project includes the replacement of 100,000 lighting units, which will save 50 to 70% of energy consumption and maintenance. The Council of Ministers presided by Prime Minister Hani Molki approved the 2016 amended regulation of the contribution of supporting political parties. The draft aims at enhancing parties' participation in the upcoming elections. The Cabinet also approved juvenile cases dispute settlement draft regulations for 2016 and the amended addendum number 2 to develop and operate auto parking project in Swafiya. Israeli occupation forces shot dead a Hamas fighter whom they said was responsible for an attack that killed a rabbi in a drive-by shooting in the occupied West Bank earlier this month. The fighter was killed in an overnight raid in the territory during which residents of the Palestinian village of Soref near the city of Hebron reported lengthy exchanges of fire between Israeli forces and gunmen. The Israeli forces said security forces killed the man responsible for the July 1st attack that killed Rabbi Michael Mark. Mark was shot from a moving vehicle as he drove in his car. Israeli forces also arrested 3 other militants. Islamist group Hamas identified the man killed in the raid as Muhammad al-Faqih, and it said he was a member of its armed wing, the Al-Qassam Brigades. A large truck bomb blast claimed by Daesh terrorist group killed nearly 50 people and wounded scores more in the northeastern Syrian city of Qamishli near the Turkish border. The British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the attack, which hit near a Kurdish security forces headquarters, was the deadliest of its kind in the city for years. The observatory said the death toll is expected to rise because of the number of people seriously injured. Meanwhile, the Syrian army said it had cut off all supply routes into the eastern rebel-held part of Aleppo. This came a day after it invited armed groups to put down their weapons and texted residents to leave the city. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the eastern parts of Aleppo had been under effective siege since July the 11th. Militants unleashed a series of attacks in and around the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, killing at least 40 people. The deadliest attack killed the 3 policemen and 3 civilians when a suicide bomber on foot blew up his explosives-laden vest at a police checkpoint in Baghdad's Shiite neighborhood of Shu'la. At least 15 people were wounded in the explosion. In the town of Yusufiya, south of Baghdad, a bomb explosion in their commercial area killed at least 3 shoppers and wounded 9 others. Elsewhere, 3 intelligence officers affiliated to the Interior Ministry were gunned down by drive-by shooters armed with pistols in the northeastern suburb of Rashidiyah. Police added another bomb explosion in a commercial area in the capital's southwestern neighborhood, killed 2 civilians and wounded 5 others. No group claimed responsibility for the attack. The United Nations called for a humanitarian truce in the Yemeni province of Taiz. This came after government forces captured a town from Iran-allied Houthi militia in heavy fighting that has spurred allegations of war crimes. Envoys of the Houthis have delayed responding to UN proposals calling for Houthi pullouts from cities they control, including the capital Sana'a, and the creation of an inclusive government. The UN humanitarian coordinator of Yemen voiced alarm at increasing bloodshed in the southwestern Taiz governorate, particularly at Al Sarari area, and the closure of Taiz city, the regional capital. He urged all warring parties to agree immediately to a humanitarian pause to protect civilians and cooperate with humanitarian agencies to help treat and evacuate war-wounded and deliver urgently needed medicine into the embattled zone. Saudi Arabia, along with the state of Kuwait, expressed their objection over the repeated violations by Iranian military boats on regional water bordering Kuwait. In a message sent to the UN Secretary General, the 2 states criticized the violations made by Iran on regional water divided between them. The 2 Gulf nations said all natural resources belonging to Saudi Arabia and Kuwait only. Pope Francis was greeted by crowds of pilgrims on the streets of Krakow before being welcomed by the Polish president in a ceremony at Wawel Castle. The pontiff is in Krakow, where the late Pope John Paul II was raised for the World Youth Day. He expressed a need for new forms of exchange and cooperation in order to do everything possible to alleviate the suffering while tirelessly working with wisdom and constancy for justice and peace. The killing of 85-year-old father Jakes Hamill sent a deep chill over the World Youth Day event. Pope Francis said the murder was particularly barbarous because it happened during the central rite of Christian worship as the priest was saying morning mass.
When I speak of war, I talk about real war, not a war of religion. There's a war of interests. There is a war for money. There is a war for natural resources. There is a war for domination of peoples. This is the war. Anyone who thinks I'm talking of a religious war, no. All the religions want peace. Others want war.
As Pope Francis said, the recent attacks, including the murder of the priest in France, was proof that the world is at war. President François Hollande demonstrated interfaith unity with France's religious leaders after 2 Daesh militants killed a Roman Catholic priest in a church. More in this report.
France's religious leaders in Paris gathered in a show of unity in the wake of Tuesday's church attack. They issued an appeal for calm following the attack, in which an 85-year-old priest was killed by 2 men claiming loyalty to Islamic State. The Paris mosque rector condemned the bloodshed as an act contrary to the teaching of Islam.
L'agression d'un lieu de culte, l'atteinte de la personne humaine.
The attack on a religious place, the violation of a human being, and the killing of a priest who is respected and protected in our religion, this is an act outside of Islam, an act that all French Muslims condemn and reject.
The Catholic Archbishop of Paris urged unity among all religions to avoid the disharmony Islamic State was trying to sow.
Nous ne pouvons pas nous laisser entraîner.
We cannot let ourselves be dragged into Daesh's political game, which wants to pit us against each other, the children of the same family.
Les enfants d'une même famille.
The anti-terrorist unit of the Paris prosecutor's office is investigating the attack in which both killers were shot dead by police. Officials say 1 person's been arrested. It was the latest in a series of deadly assaults in Western Europe.
Hillary Clinton secured the Democratic Party's White House nomination Surviving a bitter primary fight to become the first woman to head the ticket of a major party in the U.S. history, Clinton will become the party's standard bearer against Republican nominee Donald Trump in the November 8th election when she accepts the nomination tomorrow. In nominating Clinton, delegates made the point that the selection of a woman was a milestone in America's 240-year-old history. The Democratic nominee promises to tackle income inequality, tighten gun control, and reign in Wall Street if she becomes president.
I don't understand people who trash talk about America. I'm not interested in talking provocatively. I'm not interested in insulting people, including our military. I'm interested in bringing our country together. I'm interested in healing the divisions. We have to protect ourselves against terrorists. To do that, we need to lead other countries in stopping ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other radical jihadist groups. We shouldn't leave that to the rest of the world to figure out on their own. That won't keep us safe.
A self-proclaimed donkey whisperer is encouraging people to better understand donkeys' emotions and mannerisms with the help of technology. The owner of real donkeys has been studying the animals for more than 20 years and says they are very emotive creatures. Families will be able to book free rides for children on these talking donkeys in London's Jubilee Gardens.
And then put it back onto him. Right, okay, done. Okay?
Yeah, do that now, yeah?
Yeah. Dan's going to do it now, is that
Stan Wawrinka survived a thriller against Mikhail Yuzhny in the second round of the Rogers Cup, fighting back in both sets to prevail 7-6, 7-6. The Swiss second-seeded trailed 5-4 in the first set and had to break Yuzhny's serve to force a tie-break. Wawrinka, who had failed to advance past the second round in the last two tournaments, now has a third-round matchup with American Donald Young. Top seed Djokovic, the only member of the Big Four in Toronto, will play in his first singles match since Wimbledon when he takes on Luxembourg's Gilles Muller. A team of refugees handpicked by the International Olympic Committee is expected to hog the Rio 2016 spotlight from the very first day when they march as an independent team into the Olympic Stadium just before host Brazil at the opening ceremony on August 5th. More than 1 million refugees steamed into Europe in the past year alone as they fled fighting in Syria and other countries. The team will be housed in the Olympic Village along with other 11,000 athletes. And finally, the weather forecast: moderate in most regions, but hot in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea with northwesterly moderate winds. Tomorrow, relatively hot in the hilly areas, Badia, and in the eastern plains, while very hot in the Dead Sea with a high of 40 degrees. The Gulf Aqaba should expect high temperatures tomorrow as well, and winds will be moderate to brisk with somewhat choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to close here our top stories once again, the Prime Minister receives the annual reports of the anti-graft body. Daesh claims responsibility for the truck bomb blast that has killed nearly 50 people in the northeastern Syrian city of Qamishli. And the Pope says the recent attacks show the world is at war and religion is not to be blamed. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Lo Balkar, and I'll see you tomorrow.